And Sue said she'll send it over to you when it's done, when it's finished. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Sorry. Have they got a pre-meeting or something?
Oh, not that I know of.
Not that we're involved in.
No, but there's this lack of people.
Yeah. They're all last minute merchants.
There's going to be a couple of late people.
Yeah, Kelly Swingler and Mark Dorset. Yeah.
Yeah, so quorums, what quorum they need?
7, is it? Or is it 8 with one public sector member? I can't remember. Let's have a look.
It's half, so wouldn't it be 6 private and 1 public?
Briefing note says 8. Majority of the total number of members of the business board must be present.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, because it needs a majority.
Kelly Swingler.
It needs 7. That shouldn't be. Rochelle.
Hi, Rochelle.
Hello.
Hi.
We were just checking about quorum because there's going to be 2 coming late and then 1 who's given an absence.
So we should still be all right for 7 + 1, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you both doing? Dawn, I haven't seen you for ages. Where have you been hiding?
You don't want to know. My mum passed away 2 weeks ago. Yeah, she's been poorly since March. So yeah, it's been a bit tricky.
I'm so sorry to hear
Which
that.
is why I've been keeping a low profile to put it politely.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
That's okay. Thank you.
How are you coping?
Okay. Yeah. I've got. I'm an only child, so it makes it a bit difficult. But I've got a lot of really great cousins and other family. So yeah, and my husband, obviously, and friends.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh,
well, that's okay. So there is a reason I haven't been here or responding to a lot.
Yeah, no, I didn't know. So sorry.
No, that's okay. Nick's been keeping everything afloat, business board wise. Thank you.
He has, yeah, he loves it. He loves it, don't you, Nick?
Oh, definitely.
Oh no, gosh, yeah. So yeah, hopefully we'll be quora anyway.
Yeah.
Well, there's no one here yet, so we're far from being.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Hi,
5. Hi there.
Hello.
6, 7, 8. Yeah, we should be okay.
Did they say why they were going to be late?
yeah, one of well, Emily might know.
Oh, this is Mark. I think Mark said he had another meeting, but I don't know why they don't
Had the
know.
consultation.
They must have, yeah, they must know these things before. I don't know why.
This is what I'm saying, have we circulated the meeting dates for the rest of the year too then?
Oh gosh, yeah, they've got them up until May.
Yeah,
Yeah, you guys have done it till, so they definitely know. And it's always the same time, so. Yeah. But I think are we at 8, aren't we? Until, and then when Kelly and Mark join, it's.
Yeah, as long as there's 7 private members. I'll open it up for the attendees now because maybe some of them signed in as that, although I don't think they will. Well, there aren't any attendees either.
Oh, don't say that.
Well, it's a bit.
Oh, that's the
it's like
attendee.
2:22. Where is everybody?
Did you guys get the like automatic individual link?
Yeah, I got them.
Yeah, and I spoke with Al because he was trying to find, he couldn't find his code, but then he got that, so obviously everyone else did as well. So.
Yes, it usually comes through like an hour before, doesn't it? So
Yeah, I think the business board
Yeah.
members are quite savvy, and they just come in a few minutes before. I don't know if they're having any kind of briefing or anything.
not that I'm aware of. No.
Moon Chair.
Hey team, how you doing?
Good afternoon, Austin.
Hi, Austin.
Hey, everyone well?
Yeah,
Yes, thank
surviving.
you. How are you?
I'm great, yeah. Other than it's raining, that's a bit depressing. Other than that,
Yes, bit of a change from yesterday.
indeed. We're a bit early, aren't we? So
Yeah.
did you get any responses on the last two compliance requests for
For the registers, Austin.
yeah, for the registers?
Yeah, I got Kelly's back, which was great. So thank you. And also, Mark sent me an email. Haven't got Mark's, but he has sent me an email. So
Okay.
yeah, no, that's really great. Thank you.
Goody.
Hi, folks.
Hey, Al.
Hi.
Hi, Nathan.
Oh,
Anything?
hi.
All very quiet and studious.
Just excited, Austin.
I can imagine.
How's it all going with your businesses, Austin? Are you all back at work?
Yeah, no. So with the odd exception of a couple of small businesses, one in Bristol, one in Glasgow, we've carried on regardless. To be quite honest,
All right.
most of the businesses are involved in something either in medical or energy or some protected product or service. We have seen some reshaping of some of the businesses with the furlough process. But some of that's as much to do with the risk that we carry with some of the manufacturing companies being closed down. If we have a an unfortunate individual that picks up the issue, it could put us out of business for a week or two. So putting people on shifts and rotating them and doing all sorts of crazy things as risk mitigation. Yeah, not too bad. There are many more in a much worse position than we are, that's for sure, particularly smaller companies.
Yeah, it's good that you've got some of the guys back then. I'm sure those guys who haven't been away probably don't understand the other guys who have been away and trying to get them back as well.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's had quite an impact on international work. We can't send people overseas. We've got a very strong service team in one of our businesses, and they haven't been able to do anything for months now. And that's very lucrative, of course. So, having said that, that demand remains there. It just gets pent up. So, as and when, we'd expect that activity to recover very quickly. Hey, Tina.
Hello. Yeah, we didn't stop either. And it was quite interesting because, of course, people who do similar work to us in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, first of all, they just stopped. But secondly, they had to stop because of their government. And that left DEFRA in quite a difficult position because they weren't, we put in place social distancing and hygiene measures and sending people out to the field to do trial work. We didn't see as putting them at risk at all. Whereas, of course, the Scottish government, and I'm sure this wasn't a political move, decided that it was a risk. So anyway, that's why potato testing's fallen a bit behind a bit, whereas cereals and oilseed rape and stuff's kept up.
You can't stop them growing, can you, Tina? They don't understand COVID-19, do they, plants? Hey, James, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody.
Aye.
We'll wait in just a few more. Afternoon, Faye.
Hello, everybody. Everyone's very nice and quiet.
Waiting for the fun to start. All like Coil Springs.
Austin, can we just hold off for 1 second? John is just about to join us.
Yep.
I just got to get him the link. 1 second.
We're a bit thin on the ground, actually. Just bear with us and be patient for a minute. There are a number of people that haven't sent apologies that we're expecting to join.
Nikki is just joining us. She's just having trouble with the link.
Perfect.
And
we're missing Amir, Jason, Andy, and John Holditch. Is John planning to join, do we know? Yep. Hey, Nikki.
Hello,
Good afternoon.
how are you?
Yeah, all good. We're just waiting for 1 or 2 people to come in. Emily, we've not had any late apologies, have we, to the meeting?
No, not at all. So I'm just going to send out the general link to members and just ask them to click on that instead in case they're having trouble with the other one. Bear with me a moment.
Yeah, Emily, it's John. I didn't have a link in my meeting invite. I think that's maybe happened for quite a few people. I think I can see Al nodding or shaking his head.
No, I had the same, John, but Nick sort of come across to me earlier, but I think that might have stumped some people.
Right, he stumped me.
Yeah, with it being a webinar, it sort of sends it automatically to individually, but I'll send the general link round.
Jason and Andy. Good afternoon, guys.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
That just leaves Amir, I think.
I've resent the invitation to Amir. If this format doesn't work, I think we revert back to putting the link in the meeting invite, please, Emily and Nick.
We'll just give Amir 30 seconds and we'll make a start. I think we're quorate without Amir. Ah, there we are. Amir, good afternoon.
Sorry, I apologize. I had IT problems.
All righty, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Business Board meeting, July. In terms of technical arrangements, today's meeting is being held via Zoom. Video conferencing, we will have live recording for governance purposes of this meeting. If you do experience any technical difficulties during the meeting, please refresh your connection in the first instance. Board members' participation will be monitored for quoracy purposes. If it becomes apparent that we've lost members and are no longer quorate, it may be necessary to adjourn and we may have to reconvene the meeting as a telephone conference. Can I also remind board members that this is a private meeting which only business board members and specific officers are invited to, so I trust you're all in a secure and private place. To ensure everyone is online and present, if you could confirm your names for me, please, not forgetting to take the mute button off, please. Tina?
Yes.
Hey. Amir?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Nikki?
Yes.
Nikki. Jason?
Yes.
Andy?
Yep.
Nitin?
Yep.
Mayor James Palmer?
Yep.
Councillor John Holditch? And myself, Austin Adams. So I have apologies from Rebecca Stevens, and we expect Mark Dorset and Kelly Swingler to join the meeting later, I believe, around about 3 o'clock. Maybe, Dom, if you'd remind me to just check in with them that they've no declarations of interest as and when they do rejoin the meeting. Have we heard from John at all? John Holditch, is he well?
Hey, Chair, I'm just trying to get in touch with Councillor Holditch.
Okay. All right, let's press on. In terms of declarations of interest, this is an opportunity to declare pecuniary interests in any or any other conflicts of interest. Do members have any conflicts to declare? If you'd like to raise your hand or shout out.
Austin, it's Andy. So 3.2 talks about the growth service company. I was involved in one of the consortia that was considering bidding for that contract, but we're not currently planning to put a bid in. So I'm not conflicted as it stands, but I just wanted to register that with people.
Noted. Thanks, Andy. Okay, if there's no one else. Moving on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of May, the last full meeting, and the exceptional meeting held on the 9th of July 2020. We are asked to approve the minutes of these meetings as correct records. Can I ask any member who does not agree with the proposal to click the raised hand function to raise any issues? Okay, I don't see any raised hands. Please shout if you're having problems with that function. So on that basis, I see no objections. We'll take that as carried and deal with the signing of the minutes. On the minutes dated the 9th of July, there's also appended the list of the action log for the business board and the related activities around that. Do officers have any further updates to report on the action log to those already included in the agenda that we won't otherwise come to? Is there anything, Dom, that you need to bring to our attention?
Hi, Chair. Apologies, I've just rejoined. I lost connection there for a minute. Yes, so I just wanted to update on two of the actions, please. The board requested an update on the appointment of a market engagement officer to join the business and skills team. And I just wanted to give the latest on that. So interviews were held and the position was offered, but unfortunately the person has declined. So we're having to re-recruit that for that position. To expedite it, we are going to probably try and use agency, try and get someone in sooner rather than later. But I will circulate an update as soon as I know any more from HR. And the other one was Steve was asked to circulate an update on the LGF, providing a list of all the applicants and the projects. That's been done. It's just been kind of finalised and sensor checked, and that will be circulated to the business board as well. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dom.
And the stakeholder mapping. Sorry, Chair. Sorry. One more thing. So the business board members have been circulated to follow up on an action that was raised at the previous board meeting about capturing top 10 contacts, so we can start putting together a business board stakeholder contact base.
And you've asked for that for the second week in August, I think, Dom, yes?
Absolutely. So I just want to thank business board members for their cooperation in getting that done.
Yes, if we could all respond to Dom on that, that would be greatly appreciated, and we can consolidate that and see what that plan might look like. Thank you, Dom. Dom, we're staying with you, please. If we can flip to 1.3, the Combined Authority update, please.
Chair, just to note that Councillor Holditch has joined us.
Councillor Holditch, good afternoon. You're on mute, John. Can you hear us, John?
All right, is that better?
That's better, John. Good afternoon. Are you well?
No, sorry, I couldn't get in, but now I'm in. Lovely place to be. Good afternoon, all.
Thank you. John, can I just go back to declarations of interest? Is there a...
You can, yeah.
Just for the record, for your good self?
Well, I think on there I normally declare an interest in the university. I don't know why, but if that's on there, I do that. I don't think I've got any interest other than that.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you. Let's go back to 1.3 then, please. The combined authority update, Dom.
Thank you, Chair. So just a couple of points before I go into the agenda item. Underneath this item, we normally bring a couple of presentations from the combined authority to update the business board on key projects that the wider organisation is working on. We have proposed that because of the time constraints in the business board meeting, and the giving it some attention that it needs in terms of feedback and input from business board members, we've decided we've proposed that we do that via the update meetings that we hold with the business board members going forward. So this agenda item will be the last time that we do presentations as part of this or combined authority update as part of the agenda for the business board members. I just wanted to make that clear. And in terms of updates from the last combined authority meeting, I just wanted to highlight a couple of key decisions which the business board should be aware of. These have been circulated. The Market Towns programme was approved, and I'm doing an update on that later on in the meeting. The combined authority retraining scheme was approved, and maybe John T. Hill can give an update if the business board wanted to know a bit more about that scheme. And the only other thing to note for business board members was that the combined authority approved the active travel emergency funding for Cambridge and Peterborough, and a number of schemes were implemented as part of that intervention to support active travel within towns as part of the COVID recovery. So if there's no other further questions, we can move on to the presentations.
Right. Thank you for circulating the presentations in advance. That's very, very helpful. On that basis, board members will have had a chance to go through these slides. So could I ask the presenters to go through them quite quickly and leave us just a few minutes at the end if there are any questions? That would be great. Who's going up first? Is it Robert or Nick?
Robert's going to go first, Chair.
Okay, Robert.
Thank you, Chair. I'll hopefully try and share my screen if the officer can release my capability to share screen, please. Thank you.
Robert, you should be able to, oh, yeah, there we go.
So, as Chair's already mentioned, this is a brief presentation of where we've managed to progress in a relatively short amount of time with the development of Soham Railway Station. My name is Robert Jones from the Transport Programme Delivery Team. I'm Transport Programme Manager. So the first slide is a picture of what was the original Soham Station, built and opened in 1st of September 1879. Unfortunately, it was blown to bits during the 2nd of June 1944. That was a munitions train that came through and caught fire. The munitions train was decoupled from the majority of the 250-pound bombs that it was carrying and blew up the engine and the first carriage. Both the firemen and signalmen received George Cross medals for their bravery for the significant reduction in loss of life as a consequence of their bravery in action.
Is that the mayor on the platform?
No, it looks a bit too short to be the mayor.
Yeah, it's not quite fat enough either.
So the crater that was left behind, it was a key route through for munitions transport, and within 24 hours, I wish Network Rail could do this. Within 24 hours, the railway was reopened and back in operation. However, due to beaching, that was then closed down on the 13th of September in 1965, and there have been various modifications throughout the years. So currently there's a single track line, but there is the old site of the station. Therefore, the project title is Bringing Back the Soham Station Redevelopment. So this is a summary of the blue area is what the mayor and the command authorities managed to achieve, which is lobbied for the station through the appointment of Network Rail. We had a development services agreement that was put together in February of last year. So we've got the first phase of work, which is now progressed to develop the closure of the existing crossings, build the car park, and we're now in engagements under a different agreement called an implementation agreement, which we put into place at the end of last year. So quite significantly, where are we now? So we entered into contract, which is the pre-detailed design stage. Network Rail are appointed a contractor next week for the detailed design. So some of the information I will caveat when we get to the end of this pinky area, because there's some new and emerging facts that are coming to light. So activities for the track access and signalling modifications, this is part of the scope. We got planning permission relatively recently, as you can see, on the 26th of June, which is as planned. Final business case development is where we're up to now in July. Detailed design is commencing. The detail there is August. We've actually already started, and there are advanced utility diversions on Station Road, which is the access into the railway site, is due to commence in September, beginning of September, and the main works are due to be track works are due to be started next year. Now, this is where we are due to be opening May 2022. Railway projects open on the timetable changes, which happens in December and May. We're working with the contractor, who's due to be appointed next week, to bring that forward by 6 months. So the objective is to open the station in December 2021. That currently is not yet formal, because we need to write it or have the contract signed to agree that, but that's what's all into the documentation and where we're endeavoring to progress to. The last slide, which I hope will work. I might have to switch a screen to bring this up. So please shout if you don't see anything coming up, please. This is a visualization or a video output of the station itself. Can you see a Network Rail banner on the screen?
I can't.
No.
You can
Okay.
see a picture.
Yeah, okay. I just need to try and share another screen. Can you see it now?
No.
No.
It's in the same picture, Robert.
I think you need to go into.
I think there's sufficient information presented there for people to understand.
Okay.
Well, Robert, thank you for that.
No problem.
Appreciate the update. Are there any quick questions for Robert on that? Tina?
Can you just remind us which line it's on? So where it's going from and to?
So at the moment, it's a single track line that goes from Cambridge due north up into Ely. It was the original, there's lots of reconfigured lines. It was the original Ely to Newmarket line as was. So it's a twin track either side, and where we get to the Soham station, it becomes a single line.
Thank you, Robert. Any more questions?
Sorry, the line is the Ipswich Birmingham line, not Cambridge. So
Sorry,
it's a direct line between well, Felixstowe really and
that's right.
Liverpool.
That's correct. Thanks, Matt.
All righty, let's move on to the next presentation. Thank you for that, Robert. Very informative. Thank you.
Right, hello everybody. I'm Nick Sweeney, Development Manager from the Housing Directorate. If I can, I'll try and share my screen with you. Can you organise that, please, Nick? Right.
Please click on share screen at the bottom.
Is that sharing anything?
No.
Is that?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Right, there we go. Thanks for that. I've been invited here today to deliver a brief presentation to the Business Board about the Affordable Housing Programme and to describe our Directorate's current activities. The Affordable Housing Programme funding consists of £170 million that is divided into 3 pots. £70 million is allocated to Cambridge City as grant funding, and the Cambridge City Housing Team manage this element under our supervision. A further £60 million is allocated to grant funding throughout the remainder of the Combined Authorities area. And the third element is the £40 million revolving fund, which I'll describe later. This slide in front of you provides an overview of grant funding progress to date. Current targets are to obtain approval to fund 1,600 units by the end of 2020. And as can be seen from the chart, we're only 64 units away from hitting this target. You can also see that at the end of June, there were 623 starts on site and 121 completions. The overall programme target is to support 2,000 starts on site by March 2022. Third element of the programme funding consists of £40 million that has been set aside in what we call the revolving fund. This money is not distributed as grants, but is used to support initiatives that provide housing. But unlike grants, the funding is repaid to the Combined Authority, so it can then be reinvested or recycled. The initiatives we have available to use are detailed on the slide, but our recent activity has mainly focused on loan agreements. This slide shows that there are currently 5 loans in operation amounting to £51 million with 33.7 million repaid to date. Loans are enabling delivery of 213 units and funding 53 affordable units. It's interesting to note that developers usually obtain finance at around 10% by the time you've added all the arrangement fees, etc. However, we can loan at around 3 to 4%, provided we comply with state aid requirements, and this can generate a considerable saving. This saving can then enable us to secure some additional affordable units within the schemes that we're supporting. We're also seeking opportunities to use the Combined Authorities' wholly owned company, Angle Developments East Limited, to engage in joint ventures. The company can then become established and develop relationships across the industry. We're seeking to work in partnership with developers that have similar aspirations, and these are to deliver housing and provide affordable housing, unlike mainstream housing developers that are more profit orientated. Some potential opportunities for joint venture are shown on this slide. Fenland District Council has 3 potential sites, and Huntingdonshire may have some opportunities, and we're keen to work with constituent authorities. I'm currently engaged in negotiations with Evra, that are a limited liability partnership of 4 registered providers, and Evra are redeveloping RAF upward for 485 units over 2 phases. Medisham Homes are a partnership between Peterborough City Council and Cross Keys Homes, and they have a site at London Road in Peterborough for about 100 units that they're willing to share with us. In addition to the affordable housing programme that I've described, we have a community-led housing team who focus on supporting community land trusts, and they are also working hard on the 100k Homes initiative. Now, 100k Homes are a form of starter unit for working people, where any equity above £100,000 is locked into the property at the point of sale. The new owners are then entitled to a proportionate share of the increase in equity during their period of ownership. Our community-led housing team also supports community land trusts that have been formed across the combined authorities area, as shown on this slide. Some local plans allow for community-led housing as exceptions to planning policy, and this enables land to be released at much lower values on the basis that the houses can only be occupied by local people. This concludes my brief presentation, and I hope it's provided an insight and overview of the affordable housing programme and the wider work of our directorate. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Grand job.
Great. I think I've stopped stop share. There we go. Thanks.
Perfect. Are there any questions for Nick? All right, perfect. Nick, thank you very much for sharing that with us. A very good job. Thank you. Jason, do you have a quick question?
Yes, I did. I think Andy might have as well, but mine was really basic. Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering the work underpinning the one-bedroom homes. So I was just curious to know, was there a study that underpins why one bedroom was more desirable in terms of what people need for growth in the area?
I'm sorry, the £100,000 home is not necessarily a one bed. I'm trying to clarify your question, Jason.
Yeah, so I was just curious. So that's what I'm trying to clarify as well. So when you say one bed homes for £100,000,
I don't think that they're necessarily one bedroom. Oh yes, they are. One bed homes for £100,000. Yes, they're a form of starter unit, just for so that your average working couple can afford to get on the housing ladder and own property instead of shelling out money in rent and therefore not being able to save a deposit.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Maybe something we can offline around the work that was done to determine like how many one bed homes would be sustainable long term as opposed to just starter homes right now. But yeah, I was just curious.
So
maybe it's not for this call.
The reasoning behind it, Jason, is very simple. There are very, very few one bed homes built anyway. And it is entirely designed to get people onto the housing ladder. So we have currently over 2,000 people signed up for one of these homes. Why does it make a difference? Because you can get a 98% mortgage on it. The mortgage is repayment only. Mortgage is around £360 a month. Comparable rent in Cambridge, South Cambs, south of Hunts and south of East Cambs is significantly greater than that on anything similar, although there are not many one bed homes on the market. So it was twofold. First of all, there is a lack of these types of housing, but the main reason is to get young people who are earning around £18,000 or above out of the rent cycle, which is so damaging, of course, and so very expensive.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
I see hands up from Andy and Al. We'll take Andy first, please. Andy?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself and finally managed it. So it was a quick question about the impact of COVID and whether that's affected supply chain, both progress, but also supply chain concerns in the future.
That's a very good point. The industry more or less shut down during the lockdown, and we're actually taking a paper to board to ask if it's okay if we can grant some extensions to the money that's been loaned out to developers. because obviously their project cash flows are going to be seriously disrupted. And so that's how the combined authority is trying to help out the developers it's currently loaning to at the moment.
And how about the wider supply chain? Are any of the developers reporting problems there with accessing materials?
I have heard about some there being a shortage of plaster and raw materials like that, but without putting in some research, Andy, I couldn't really answer that, I'm afraid.
Okay. It's just saying we're looking at a lot in the university with it. So we've been through most of our construction projects, quite careful review of the supply chains, because there was a concern about stuff coming in from China at one stage as well, and disruption there. So it might be worth getting someone to do a bit of drill down on that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll look into that.
Thanks, Andy. I've got a hand raised from Al.
Thanks, Austin. It was just a clarification for my benefit. Looking at the revolving funding that we use for the existing loans, we refer to it as funded units, and the funding looks to be on average about £1 million a unit. So in that context, are we talking about things other than houses? We're talking about industrial units, or is that a different kind of measure? I'm thinking of you on your slide where you refer to existing units.
I'm sorry, there's no way it'd be £1 million a unit.
Well, I'll just take an example. It says Ely MOD site, amount 24.5 million, funded units 15.
That's the funded, that's the affordable element of it. Now that site, what they did is they bought in, they've lent 24 million to East Cams Trading Company, who are bringing in 92 homes back into general circulation. I think of those, it says funded units 15. That's meant to mean the affordable housing element of those 92.
Okay, so we're funding the 92, to be clear.
Yeah, we're funding the whole of that, and they're currently up and running and being sold at the moment. So that money's coming back, and it's going to be recycled.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nick. I can't see any more hands raised. Just to be clear, if we could use the hand raised button, because I can't see everyone on the screen all at the same time on occasions. I can't see any more, so we'll move on. The recommendation here is just to note, there are 3 points here. Note the decision statement of the Corporate Combined Authority board meeting of the 3rd of June. Note the CPCA update presentations on the Soham Station and Affordable Housing Programme, and note that future CPCA update presentations will now be covered at the business board activity update meetings and not in this forum, which I think makes perfect sense. So if I'm not seeing any objections to that, we'll move on and consider that is all very acceptable. Thank you for that. Dom, I think we're not staying with you. We're moving to John, please, for an update on the business board's activities in relation to the impact of COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, board members. So casting your mind back to May, officers reported around the tactical types of responses that we were making through the business board to help companies with the impacted effects of COVID-19 pandemic. That included the Mayor's discussions with MHCLG through the M9 forum. Also our new business board loans grant provision, and of course the special COVID-19 capital grant scheme that ended up being at nearly 6 million in the end. The new growth hub services that we did. Also, we mentioned my chairing of the economic recovery subgroup, which I'm now going to tell us a little bit more about. So moving forward, now that we've come out of effectively lockdown, and hopefully we stay that way, and the more immediate impacts of lockdown and the cessation of revenues for companies, we're looking further ahead into recovery, rebound, and renew, and of course restarting before that. And the high street has already been restarted from the 4th of July. So we've created a first draft of initial ideas for a recovery strategy. That is in Appendix 1. I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second. We've collated that from what the M9 group of mayoral combined authorities are doing in terms of their gathering of evidence base of the impacts on businesses and the potential interventions that one might get into to assuage some of those impacts. Study of the LEP network and what different LEPs are doing, and some of you may have seen NARLEP's New Anglia LEP presentation, and some of you may also have seen, which we'll talk about later, the West Midlands Combined Authority report on their recovery strategy. Both have their ups and downs and their pros and cons that no doubt we'll debate in a second. We've also taken into account the Oxcam 3 LEPs and Combined Authority recovery strategies that are in development, and that will be part of a separate report that will come to you that we have commissioned jointly with the other LEPs in the or the 3 LEPs within the Oxcam area, and we'll be bringing to you, I hope, maybe in the September board meeting, but if not, the meeting after that. Our recovery strategy is somewhat further ahead than the Oxcam level recovery strategy, so we may not be able to bring you both in their final forms in the September meeting. We've also taken into account the members of the Economic Recovery Subgroup and their points of view. They are basically the economic development officers of the constituent local authorities, plus the big business groups like FSB, for instance, CBI and Chambers, and the more local like Opportunity Peterborough and of course Cambridge Ahead and so on. And then finally, there is an economic recovery working group in Whitehall that we get copied every couple of weeks in terms of their thinking. So that is also fed into the document you've got. The business board approved in the last meeting in May £189,000 for some additional econometric research and evidence-based building that we will that we are starting this week and laying the contract out, and that will be reporting back in August in time for new, very specific to our economy evidence to be put into this piece of work. That evidence base itself builds on a piece of co-commissioned work that GCP, Greater Cambridge Partnership, and ourselves co-sponsored, which is in your packs as Appendix 1 under the name of Hatchery Genesis, which was met with some criticism on the basis that it was a little bit light perhaps on evidence and focused a great deal on existing evidence, which is acceptable. But also that some of the recommendations weren't necessarily too well tied to that evidence. The reason I bring this up is it's something that we would be hoping that we would not fall into the same trap of, and our much bigger piece of work, 189K's worth, is designed to be much more evidence heavy and actually recommendation light, because we do want the recommendations for what we do about the evidence that's presented to us to come from the business board, to come from the economic recovery subgroup, and from the business organisations themselves. So we hope that we'll be going around that a slightly different way or a better way. We've structured it on the restart, recover, rebound, renew phases of recovery. And we'll also be, and we have in fact already modified the version you've got and put it back out to the economic recovery subgroup as a matrix. So we've actually got 4 sections, which is what sort of interventions would we have in restart, what sort of interventions would we have in recovery and rebound and renew. But within each of those 4 sections, we've also tried to align it with the LIS, where we say, okay, well, within rebound, for instance, and this is the rebound is that faster piece of rebound recovery, hopefully we'll get in the next 18 months. What would you do with ideas, innovation, in other words? What would you do with people, skills? What would you do with the business environment? What would you do with infrastructure? So we've come up with a matrix that looks at the different phases under different themes of intervention in each of the phases. And that's currently being inputted to by all the members of the economic recovery subgroup. And it will be that version that we bring to the business board subgroup that I'm recommending we create, so that you can have your very specific input into what we've come up with, what we've missed, and we'll be running a series of workshops. The first will look at the content we've got as it stands. The second will look at the further economic evidence base we've acquired during the course of August. So we basically tie back against the new and emerging evidence that we can see, including actually the speed of rebound, which if you watch the commentators as I do, EY are saying that the speed of rebound is going to be slower than the OBR was saying just a couple of weeks ago. So it's something for us to look at there. So that's pretty much it. The recommendations are that we do indeed create a subgroup so that a wider set of people than currently Faye and Kelly, who lend themselves admirably to the economic recovery subgroup, which we're very grateful for. But the concept here is we get a larger cross-section of the business board to give some more in-depth input during some workshops, as well as keep a hold on what's going on in the economic recovery subgroup via Kelly and Faye. So we are seeking 6 nominations for members to join this subgroup, and your approval to create the subgroup. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Just very mindful that we need to get on with figuring out what the priorities are and build a plan around it. Useful as a starting point, the Hatch report. I'm interested in what other people think about the Hatch report, and not necessarily its recommendations, because I think there's an opportunity to go revisit that. That might be, we might have got off a little bit earlier than we should in terms of thinking about recommendations at this stage. I'm very pleased, as John said, that we've commissioned a much more detailed evidence-based report to help steer our thinking. But clearly what we do going forward, there are going to be an awful lot of different stakeholders pulling in different directions. And in that respect, if we come back to what is the purpose of the business board and our desire to hold us true to understanding decision making on the grounds of evidence-based assessment and working in the best interests of business and delivering fundamentally the economic growth, I do think this is quite an important piece of work that we need to contribute to. So my plea is, we've all got lots of other things to do, I'm sure, but this is really, really fundamental to some of the decisions that we'll be looking to support going forward, and therefore having a seat at the table and helping to assess and steer and direct here some of the opportunities is very, very important. And in that respect, I'll start the ball rolling by saying I would personally be very happy to rearrange my diary to make sure I can make these 2 workshops to support what we're trying to get done here. But before we go back around nominations, has anyone got any specific questions for John, or any particular issues or observations they'd like to share? I see Al. Go for it, Al.
Sorry, yeah, thanks, Austin. I suppose the question I was just interested in was a lot of this hinges on that much more detailed piece of work that we're commissioning. And I was assuming that perhaps was already underway. Are we still confident that, given we're about to roll into August, that the time window is sufficient for that work to be done and delivered? Because it seems a very, very small window of opportunity to capture that based on the timeline. And also, I'm happy to put my name forward as well to support.
Yeah, so it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma, Al. We've taken the view that the members may disagree with, but we've taken the view that the board would want to have a look at an economic strategy in September, that the next opportunity would be November. That then forces us into a bit of a funnel. The Hatch work went on during the course of June, and we debated it in July. We procured this new piece of work in July, or indeed in June, and we started it this week. So we'll have till the end of August to get a first crack at some evidence that can get into a paper for September for the board members to look at, and into the workshops. That economic work actually continues to go on all the way through to March. So we'll be getting an update in something like November, December, and there is a specific refresh in March so that we can say, okay, well, what was the actual recovery like? What was rebound like? What were the specifics? So it is a bit of an imperfect science, or it's an imperfect model perhaps, in that we're going with what we can get in the time we can get it over August. It's really the continued development of some Aunt Sally's, really. We've got an initial answer that's got some evidence base to it, but it's not brilliant. We'll have a second level that we'll put through the workshops with you all, that we'll talk about in September. And then probably we will have a revised version in November as well. It's very much a reactive strategy. It's a strategy on the hoof. I'm not sure that's the right thing to do, but that's what we're recommending.
Can I just come back? Thanks for clarifying that, John. I suppose the one question is, that 189,000, is that for that one snapshot, or does that encompass the revisit and compiling any additional information over the coming months? Because there's obviously, like you say, it's a bit of a moving target, and there's a risk that by November, most of that work from August is obsolete.
Yeah, no, the 189 takes us through to March, including the refresh. And we are negotiating with the organisation that, having done something like this to this quality, actually it'd be really good if we did it annually and gave ourselves an annual refresh. It won't be quite as sophisticated, but it will be ongoing after that.
Thanks, Dom. Thanks, Al. In terms of that dilemma, John, is it possible, given that the new report isn't necessarily delivering recommendations, it's delivering facts, that they could provide us what information they've got progressively as they go through the study? Yeah, and we will be working with them on the hoof like that. And to some extent, we already do have a lot of evidence nationally. It's about tailoring it and getting subsector and place evidence locally. So you do have enough to scope and sculpt a strategy over the course of July and August. It just has to be tailored and refined later. So it is very much an iterative process. Thanks, John. Can I go to Andy, please?
Thank you. I'm not sure with the little hands are showing or not, because I know Faye's got hers up, but it's not showing on the screen. So so a couple of things. I mean, I thought the Hatch report, John, I agree about the comments on the recommendations, and they seemed a bit of a leap. But actually, some of the data that was in there, I thought was really quite useful as a kind of review of the economy. And it does seem to me that we need. So it's great we've got this other piece of work going on. I think we need regular updates on this sort of stuff. it's worth thinking about. Is there a way of constructing this so you get a more regular update as well as a kind of annual refresh? I think because particularly in the last few months, I mean the way the world has changed. If we got data from a year ago and we're waiting for the next set of data for another year's time, it's not really going to help us very much. So there's almost a need for kind of real-time data, and that was one of the things that I thought was quite good in the Hatch report. Was they were using mobile phone data and other things to give you a sense of what was happening now and very recently. So thinking with the new bit of work about getting an annual update but also an ongoing update would be good. I thought on the Hatch report particularly there were a couple of bits that stood out to me. One was the dependence on the education sector across the region and how badly that had been hit. I mean, I understand it from a university perspective, but actually when you think about all the language schools and the FE colleges, and thinking, and therefore I think it's really important that the group thinking about recovery pay particular attention to the education sector. We often don't, and we often talk about life sciences and ICT and high value manufacturing, and we often kind of just education just carries on like normal, and is normally a really stable sector, but hasn't been recently. So I think that's important to consider. And then the other bit was the rate of growth. If you look at the doubling GVA target, even if we don't have a second lockdown or a second wave, I mean, it may well be localized, but we're looking at an 8% growth per year in GVA. That's as fast as China was growing when it was in speedy growth mode. I mean, that gives you some sense of the size of the challenge that we will face to recover some of the economic activity we had. So it's a really significant undertaking. And like Austin, I'd be very happy to join the little group, and if I can shuffle things in the summer to make myself available, I'm happy to join in with that discussion.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Yes, thank you. I think most of my points have actually been covered. I think first of all, I would actually like to say thank you to John and the officers. The galvanizing that expansive group of people has been no easy feat, but I actually feel really positive now that we've got to a place where we're going to have one set of reporting that we can use across the region, that baseline of information, because then we're not going to have these sporadic, hopefully we're not going to have these sporadic reports and initiatives going on. And then to go back to the volunteers, if you think about who's on that call, it is the economic leads in the councils, it is the networking organisations. We need that business voice in there as well. So for example, in the Hatch report, there was absolutely nothing specific really on the local supply chains, and we all know what those supply chains are. So I think it's really important that we do have now that business input into it, and the split between the differences in the three geographical regions that we've got. And I think I even said it in one of the calls, you know, taking the recommendations of SPEAR, all of these other things that are out there, and centralizing them, I think is going to be really powerful to us as a region. So that was kind of my points and feedback on it, and obviously I would be very happy to continue to support wherever I can, especially with these upcoming workshops.
Thank you, Faye. Andy, is your hand still up? From
yeah, I've just put it back up because I just want to build on something that Faye said, and I think that voice, the business voice in the conversation, is really crucial there. The bit that's linked to that for me is when you look at what is coming in terms of likely growth of unemployment numbers across the UK, but in this region, you know, when we're talking in December, we will have, my guess is, a major topic of conversation will be just the levels of unemployment that are in the region at that stage. And we need to be thinking now about how we're going to try and intervene and support people in that. Mm-hmm. There was a Make UK survey out the other day, which had something like 50% of manufacturing firms knowing that they were planning at redundancies of up to sort of 25% of their staff in the next few months. I mean, it really is a bleak picture.
It is indeed. I can vouch for that in manufacturing. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Faye. I see a hand raised from Alan Downton.
Hello, everyone. Just building on what Andy raised, and also John. After the initial report in September and the refreshes, we are planning to have a monthly dashboard available to your good selves and other parties going forward. So there will be that detail after that. So we're in discussions as part of the package.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, could I respond to Andy's point and also for Faye's before we perhaps go on, if I may? So just to emphasise Faye's point in that this group really does need granular understanding of people who actually are running a business rather than business representative organisations, which we do have. So it's very important that we get people who really understand what it's like on the ground. On a couple of the other points that Andy raised, I've just got in front of me here the version 2 that you don't have, and we did indeed, Andy, expand out from the LIS 4 priority sectors: life science, digital, agri-tech and advanced manufacturing. And we actually said, look, COVID has actually brought some of the sectors to the fore that weren't previously priority sectors. And we've now got retail, hospitality and leisure because they've been hit so hard, particularly the visitor economy. We've got construction, which depending on which commentator you listen to, is either going to be very well off or very poorly off. Transport and education are there, and general manufacturing supply chains is there as well, that was mentioned. So we've expanded out our sector matrix in terms of which interventions are we going to have, and what do they look like in March, and what do they look like in the certain sector in Peterborough, for instance. So we certainly have done that. As for the rebound rates, I think going back to Al's point, that's why it's important to have this evidence base going forward to adjust our strategy, because just in the last month, we've had such a wide variation in prediction of rebound rates, from very optimistic to very pessimistic. So I think we'll have to just adjust our strategy as we go. And yes, a big part of what we're working on at the moment is how we deal with what we're currently forecasting as 50,000 people unemployed in our economy. So it's a significant, 50,000 more unemployed. So what do we do about that? There's definitely a limit to what we can do in terms of their direct financial support, but what we can do a lot is on retraining. And we are working hard to come up with some really good ideas on getting people with the right skills and connecting them with the sectors that are growing.
Perfect. Thank you, John. So I think I hear 4 nominations. You're welcome to nominate yourself. Is there anyone else who would like to nominate themselves?
I can only do one of the dates, though, on the 21st. Can't do the 13th.
Okay. Anyone else? Nikki, are you volunteering or are you wanting to speak?
No, I was volunteering. I just couldn't find the hand button. It's not where it usually is following the update. I was like, no, stop. Yeah, no, I'd love to be involved with that. So obviously I support a lot of small business typically, and there are lots of apprehensions around redundancies and streamlining, but also very much around that training element, where we have had companies that have massively invested in their people within training. A lot of them are putting the training on hold, and it's those conversations. Yes, I'd very much like to be a part of that.
Thank you, Nikki. I believe I have 6 nominations. I'm also mindful, though, that we don't have Mark, Kelly or Rebecca on the call. John, if one of those guys wanted to participate, could we go to 7?
Absolutely, and of course Kelly already is in the ERSG.
Yeah, okay, so we'll ask those privately, but for the purposes of getting this going then, just the formalities of the record keeping, if I just read out your name, if you could just shout yes, I'm good with that, please. So I start with Al.
Yes.
Andy.
Yes.
Thanks, Andy.
Yes.
Faye.
Yes.
Nitin.
Yes.
And Nikki.
Yes.
and myself. And I'll privately talk with Mark, Kelly and Rebecca to see how they're fixed. Okay, so thank you for that.
Sorry, Austin.
Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, no, sorry. I had really poor connection for the past 15 minutes. Apologies. But if there's still an availability to volunteer to be part of the workshops, I'd like to put myself forward. I really want to be involved in this, particularly from the life science sector point of view.
Okay. Going to need some more chairs, John. Thank you, Jason. That's fine. Perfect. So we have 7. So we have 7 nominations who have individually confirmed their acceptance of the nomination. We'll note those. It's noted that the first 2 workshops are on the 13th and the 21st of August, details of which will be confirmed. If we go back then to the recommendation here, which was in 3 parts, note the activities of the economic subgroup as chaired by the Chief Executive Officer of the Business Board, John, in the development of local economic strategy, approve the appointment of a Business Board subgroup and to nominate the 7 Business Board members to join the Business Board subgroup. Unless I see anyone raise a hand, and I see Brian's got his hand up. Is there an issue, Brian, you want to raise quickly?
Not at all, Chair. It was just a late hand just to say, obviously, we would be really grateful as well for the participation of Business Board members to give as much access to some of their business contacts, as previously mentioned, the top 10 and other contacts, because our contractors who we will select will need as much access to real business people and business leaders as possible. So we will ask the contractors perhaps work with Business Board members to get to those people, to get their insights as well. That's what I was going to flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So on that basis, if there are no objections, we'll carry that recommendation forward. Make a start on that. Thank you. Can we move to 2.1, the Business Board Finance update, please? And Vanessa.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Board. Further to the last official Business Board meeting, we have revised the way that we have presented the finances as per request from the Board. Hopefully this is much more in line with what you are now looking for. We have split the breakdowns into revenue and capital, just so that you have a much better idea of what we're looking at and where we're spending the funding and what's available. I've tried not to duplicate information that may be presented in other reports, parts of the Business Board reports, because that's, appreciate everyone's time is scarce and you want to keep it as short as possible. So without any further ado, hopefully, I'd like to present these figures to you and open the board to any questions.
Thank you, Vanessa. Questions? Andy.
So Vanessa, thank you. I thought this was really helpful and it was much clearer. I guess the one thing I wondered was whether it was feasible to also get similar data for the following financial year, so we get more of a forward look, because we've got this effectively this financial year, but if we can get future financial years, I don't know how clear that is at this point, but that would be really helpful to understand what we're playing with in the longer term.
Yes, certainly. I mean, when we set the MTFP for the CA Board anyway, we do work on a 3-year basis, so we do have those figures going forward. Some of ours will vary dependent on the projects, because obviously some are on an annual basis on how the funding is received. Where possible, I can do something for you and present that. I didn't want to present the 3-5-year plan if these figures weren't acceptable in how you wanted them. So it was sort of stepping stones as we go forward more than anything. But yeah, for the next one, we can present something going forward for 3 years.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Perfect. Thank you, Vanessa.
If I may, Chair, just to... Oh, sorry.
Andy, I know you requested on a call during the month some more performance-related information, and one of the appendices to that report is the performance information that we take to the Skills Committee. Was that the sort of information, but tailored to the Business Board's outputs and projects rather than the CPCA as a whole, that you were looking to have integrated?
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert. John.
Yeah, so I wasn't using my hands. Yeah, and Appendix 2 does have the skills half of what we do, because I thought it was important that although the skills committee does exist to make decisions on some of the skills budgets, it's part of the bigger picture. So it's important for you to see it as well. I think the other point I would like to make for Andy is that having a 2 or 3 year scope on our numbers will show us a difference between the annual budgets and the pots that have got to last. Like, for instance, Growth Hub's an easy one in that we get paid 246 grand a year to run the Growth Hub, but the LEP capacity building and LES implementation lines were sort of one-offs, that we sort of have to make last, so that we don't know the next time we'll get LES capacity building funding, and we got 400k between last year and the year before, so that tends to be the one that you may raise an eyebrow of, because it doesn't look to try and spend itself in the current financial year, because it's sort of a more long-term pot.
Yeah, and I'm conscious they'll bounce around a bit, John, because government makes decisions about lobbing more money towards the LEPs and so on. But it's just getting a bit more of a forward look. That's helpful.
Yeah.
And if I can just finish by pointing out that this is until the end of May, and as many of you will now be aware, we've had a lot of funding that's been put on in the last few months and in the last few weeks, particularly aimed at the Growth Hub in different areas for tourism, peer-to-peer networks, additional funding coming in for the adult education. So these figures could be vastly different next time we come around. I just wanted to make you aware of how quickly the landscape is changing with what we're doing at the moment.
As long as the numbers are going up, Vanessa, that's fine. We'll take it.
Hopefully.
All right, good job. Thank you for the accommodations that you've made. Very much appreciated. If we could roll that forward. I've got a couple of other quick questions. Al?
It's only a small point. I may be misreading it. It was just a query on the third table, table 1.3. The 2021 spent forecast total is 18.5 million. And if I'm reading that right, it should be nearer 80 million.
Yeah, I think that might be a typo coming across from exporting it out of the Excel document into the Word document. But yes, I will look at that one for you.
Thank you.
Just for the record, what table was that, Al?
1.3.
1.3.
I think it's just the total, but I wasn't sure if that was deferring some of the LGF, the big LGF project.
Okay, well spotted. Thank you. And John, you still got a hand up? Was that a carryover? John Hill?
It was a carryover. Apologies.
All righty. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. So, I mean, the business board recommendation here is that we're recommended to note the update of the financial position relating to the revenue and capital funding lines within the Business and Skills Directorate, and noting 1.3. I'm assuming that no one has any objections here. If you have, shout now, and we'll carry that recommendation forward. Okay. Thank you. Let's move on. Thank you, Vanessa. Let's move on to the Local Growth Fund Programme Management Review. And Steve, please.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, Board. This is my usual report covering off the update on Local Growth Fund. It also includes a bit of the financials at the end on Growing Places Fund and Recycle Funds. So highlights in the paper. Getting Building Fund, we obviously had the extraordinary board meeting on the 9th of July. Leaders strategy then discussed that particular opportunity on the 15th of July, and a formal acceptance letter was written to MHCLG for the 14.6 million on the 17th of July. Obviously, we're still waiting to hear, it's with ministers at the moment, we're waiting to hear the formal announcement for awards and allocations around the country, expecting that to come anytime soon. In the background, we're obviously working with all the partners on developing the applications for the full assurance process for that particular project. In terms of our annual grant payment, the board may recall that we were only paid 2/3 of this year's funding. The Cities and Local Growth Unit are planning on reviewing with us in middle of August, then again in October, and then again in early 21. They're basically reviewing all projects that are not under contract or that are likely to not spend by the end of March 21, obviously with a view to trying to withhold any of that final third payment. In terms of the actual programme position with projects, we currently have 16 projects in delivery. We have, it says 8 projects in contract negotiation. That's actually should be 9 because the Business Growth Service should be included in that. Now, of those, 4 are very close. I'm actually expecting 4 may well sign off their grant funding agreements this week. And the others are all slightly more complex, like the University of Peterborough, which has incorporated its company, but just formalising the agreement is still complex, and the Business Growth Service awaiting approvals on the other funding streams. We've had change request formally come to the board for the Wisbech access strategy. Board members will recall this project for some time has been telling us that they'll only deliver a certain number of the schemes. It was formally agreed at the County Highways and Transport Committee that they would reduce their ask on local growth funding. And there's also an arrangement for the Combined Authority to provide further funding from the MTFP to cover the 3 of the 5 schemes. Therefore, the board is asked to approve this change request, which would reduce their ask from 10.5 million to 6 in the scheme. And the request is at Appendix A, which hopefully you've all seen. We've also, as reported previously, have 3 other projects which have either have withdrawn: M11 Junction 8, Cambridge North East Fringe, and the Wisbech Construction Careers Hub at the College of West Anglia. So at the moment we have 21 completed projects, which is subject to evaluation over the coming months. In terms of our reporting to government, we were at the last board, we hadn't quite got Q4 done. Government have given us until September, but we've actually submitted that since, and we now have attached to this report as Appendix B our Q1 return, or the dashboard of that return for the board's information. We also have been compiling and updating the issue log for all of our projects, which again was attached at Appendix C. There are currently no red flag projects other than those which have been withdrawn at this stage. An update on the COVID-19 capital grants and micro business grant programme. Just to note, the micro grant was obviously CPCA gain share, but I've included a breakdown of both of those grant schemes with this report at Appendix E for the business board's information. I won't go through all the table of figures that's in there. Obviously you can see the impact that those grant schemes have had and the jobs numbers that have been forecast to be safeguarded or created. The Eastern Agritech programme obviously continues. We currently only have 9 live projects, but we have a number of projects now coming through the system, including in June 2 new pre-qualification questionnaires, and in July 2 PQQs as well. We have 3 full applications being considered by the board, and there are 2 applications being appraised. So we have quite a bit of activity now starting to happen. I do have a separate paper to the board on this particular scheme, so I'll leave it there. In terms of monitoring and evaluation, obviously we continue our monthly and quarterly monitoring with projects, but we have, as part of the wider COVID and insights procurement, we have appointed a specialist contractor to work with us starting to do the deep dive evaluation on all of our historic completed phase 1 projects. We've actually shared all of the logic models of those projects this week, and those guys will be starting in anger over the next few weeks with a view to bringing a first draft of evaluation report on those projects to the next board. And then in summary, for this paper, the LGF funding and recycle funding is set out in the tables in Appendix E. In Table 1, you'll obviously there's the oversight of the whole programme showing the management, admin, stock slice, and then any returned or underspent funds. Table 2 shows a full breakdown of LGF projects and their forecast of spend. Wisbech Access is shown in the table at the reduced amount. And Table 3 shows the pot of recycled funding, which has been returned to us from previous local growth fund and Growing Places Fund loans. So there's a mixture there of repaid capital and interest for information, and some commitments that the board have already put against those particular funding lines. And that's my update.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions? Noting that we'll come back to the Eastern Agri-Tech Growth Initiative shortly. Okay, I don't see any raised hands. Tina.
Just a quick question. I mean, have I understood correctly that underspend will be allocated and spent? And is that going to be zeroed out by the end of the year?
Yes, we constantly refresh the amount of funding that's available to deploy, and of course you've got some projects coming to board. Next item for use of that funding, approval for that funding. So yes, it's a constant under review running total.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, look, if there are no other questions, the business board is recommended then to recommend that the Combined Authority Board note all the programme updates outlined in the paper, recommend the Combined Authority approve the change request for the Wisbech Access Strategy Project to reduce the value, note the funding position and forecast for the LGF projects in delivery, and note the summary of funding streams under management of the board. If there are no objections, virtue of someone raising a hand, we will carry that recommendation. Okay, thank you. Can I just note that Mark Dawson joined the meeting. Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you. Could I just ask Mark, for the record, from a declaration of interest point of view, an opportunity to declare any pecuniary interests or any other conflicts of interests on your part before we continue?
No, none. Sorry, I see none to declare.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. We're sticking with you, Steve, I believe.
Yes, indeed.
So proposals.
Indeed. So we have 3 projects here which have come from the existing pipeline, previous call, which have been developed forward. The board is asked to note these projects combined request for funding total 7 million, and at the moment the running total of funding to award is 4.3 million. So the board is asked to note that all 3 projects have been through all stages of the local assurance framework process. All 3 projects completed the EAP, and the scores of that process are all noted in table 2.11. Each of I'll just very, very quickly set out the 3 projects. The first project, ranked 1 in the table, is an LGF equity investment of 999,000 to create a special purpose vehicle that will oversee early stage delivery of the Cambridge Autonomous Metro. The request is for CPCA to become a shareholder, and obviously can create and put directors into the company. The mission of the company will be to develop the concepts of the CAM, obtain the relevant Transport Works Act order and other relevant consents, and also enter into property deals with landowners for land required for the CAM, and also obtain funding and finance and appropriate community involvement. The amount of money being asked for initially is LGF and CPCA gain share funding, but later the promoter body will be funded through a mix of private and public sector investment, including land value capture mechanisms. Obviously, the project's going to create additional jobs in the region, support GVA growth, and is likely to return a return on investment currently suggested at over 10 years of 4% per annum. In terms of jobs, it's proposed to create 60 permanent jobs, 409 temporary jobs, and apprenticeships of all levels, 30 in the making. That's the CAM project. Project rank 2 is Cambridge Regional College seeking to refurbish Huntingdon Regional College campus. Two parts of this project. One's a capital refurbishment of the site. The second part is a upgrade to the college's ability to deliver online and in a new digital way. The LGF grant requested is 2,996,160, which they aim to spend by April 2021. I'll return to that in a sec. The scheme is currently REBA stage 1, but will shortly progress to REBA stage 2. The land on which the scheme is obviously the site is to be refurbished, is in complete freehold of Cambridge Regional College. So therefore there are no risks associated with acquisitions or sales. There's no planning risk, and so no issues there. The actual project will deliver a construction hub supporting trades training to meet what is quoted as a strong demand for construction skills from employers and students. The existing construction facilities are fully utilised, and in fact, in the application, they are saying that they have over 100 prospective students every year, with at least 30 that they're turning away. With extra facilities increased and refreshed, they could take around an extra 45 per year. There's lots and lots of good information in there about the demand for this. The point about employment opportunities and retraining, this figures quite strongly at the current time. The second part of the project, as I alluded to, was to refresh their online training. Quite a part of their project seems to be around renewing their IT systems, but quite a bit of it is around software enhancement, and our appraiser's recommendation is that some of that is possibly not capital expenditure, and our recommendation is to make a reduced offer. Some of that spending on the digital actually rolls over into beyond March 2021 into the other year. So our recommendation is to reduce the offer in line with what they can spend by the end of March 31, 2021. In terms of outputs, they're saying they'll create nine new jobs through the teaching side, 60 temporary jobs, apprenticeships, 55 per annum in the 2 to 3 level, 500 new learners through the IT enhancements, and a skills area that's improved around 1,000 square meters. So with that project, as I say, we're making a slightly revised recommendation based on what officers consider to be the spending possibility. And then project rank 3 in the table, this is the Northstowe Enterprise Zone Catalyst. This project is seeking LGF equity investment of 3 million into a a joint venture property company between CPCA and South Cambridgeshire District Council. The actual 3 million would buy 46% of that PropCo for the combined authority. The objectives of the PropCo would be to acquire, market and let the commercial units that the development of the Northstowe Enterprise Zone. The PropCo will acquire the completed units from the South Cambridgeshire Projects LLP, which is a South Cambridgeshire District Council investment partnership with Balfour Beatty. Obviously, the project will act as a trigger for setting out the Northstowe Enterprise Zone development strategy. There were, in terms of its output deliverables, over the longer period of time, the lifespan, the project has suggested 563 permanent jobs. Our appraiser has suggested it'll only create 79 in the coming year to autumn 2022, and 62 construction jobs. There's also a question mark over some of the indirect jobs that the project would create. The temporary jobs quoted at 30, apprenticeships 0, and obviously lots of commercial space in the main project out to 12,600 square meters in the full lifespan of the development. The entrepreneurs panel with this one flagged quite a number of risks in terms of whether the vendor is open to the land acquisition. Obviously, the arrangement, the commercial arrangement of the EZ with the SCDC LL partnership, planning risk, the commercial risk from development take-up, and affordability of return values on units, commercial risk in terms of take-up of units and voids in the future. And of course, all of this is compounded by the impact of COVID-19 and likely demand in the market for brand new office and commercial spaces. So that's it in summary. I think the question marks over the demand availability for this project was heavily debated in the entrepreneurs panel. So they're the three projects that we're putting to board now, which obviously we're recommending approval of project rank 1 and a reduced offer for project 2 and a declined recommendation for project 3.
Thank you, Steve. Questions? Anyone?
Me, I just have a, if you look at the spread of the way the assessments fell on those, and the Northstowe development, they had the 94.4% EOI, and it's clear that from the other scores that when more depth was gone, I was on the EAP for this one, and also the external assessment, that they fell down obviously on the detail, whereas the other two pretty much held up. So that's another reason, rather than just the simple average.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, correct.
John?
Thank you, Tina. I was about to raise exactly the same thing and actually make a recommendation, not as a formal recommendation here, but that we ask Steve to re-look at how we score because basically something like 90% of the information and the challenge on that information happens in the full application and the EAP. But the way we have designed our system, an EOI, which can have very scant information, and with the greatest respect to my colleagues, is officer evaluated, not business person or an expert evaluator. It can basically, as it has here, it really skews the result. So what is really quite a weak market case actually looks within 1% of a much stronger case. So I'd like to suggest to members of the board that we ask Steve to look at how we modify our scoring system going forward, possibly making the EOI simply a go, no go. You don't put its scores into the final scores. It's just you can go on. It certainly in this case has shown, I think, a wrinkle in the system that has given a result that in numbers doesn't reflect the quality and the viability of the business case.
I think that's a good point, John.
Yeah, happy to review it. That's absolutely fine. There's sometimes a time lag between the EOI and the full application as well. But I totally take the point. The EOI is currently geared very strongly towards likely return, and it's yeah, we can review that.
Testimony to the processes that we've put in place to catch these things. I think that's served its purpose well in this respect. Okay, I'm mindful I can't see any more hands raised, so I'm keen to move forward with the recommendation Steve set out, and my intention would be to deal with all three recommendations in one go on the basis that item C is conditional upon the decision on around A and B. So A and B being to approve funding for project 1, B limited funding for project 2, and by default then we can't support project 3 in the ranking table. Unless anyone has any objections. John, you've still got a hand up. Is that a carryover?
Yes, it is indeed a carryover. Oh dear.
All righty. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so we'll take that as a unanimous decision to run with recommendations A and B and C. Thank you. Steve, we're still with you, please. Can we change gear and move on to back to the Eastern Agritech Growth Initiative funding review, please?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll keep this one fairly simple and brief. The Agritech scheme's been running for 6.5 years now, using the same criteria. It's been very successful on all accounts and has deployed over 5.5 million already through the programme. But we find ourselves with 1.7 million still to be committed by the end of March 2021. 300,000 of that is into the NAILEP area as they contributed to the fund. 1.3 million is to be deployed into the complete GCGP geography. So the proposal here is to take a look at the scheme criteria, which, because of our recent schemes we've been running, now seems slightly less generous than some of the support schemes that are around. So for two reasons, we'd like to move the intervention rate from 25% to 50%. One is to just level up the scheme. It does have 50% intervention on its R&D side, but on its growth fund side, which creates jobs, that's the side we would like, and that provides the bigger grants as well. That's the side we'd like to up to 50% intervention. It means businesses have to find less match, makes it slightly more attractive. And then the other thing, as I say, is just to level it up to other schemes that are out there that we've run thus far. So it looks attractive. We plan to run a bit of a promotional campaign. Myself and the Eastern Agritech manager are talking to our comms manager. We plan to do, once we enhance this scheme, we plan to go out to the market and do a bit of interest raising there, with a view that we believe we can shift this remaining funding. Given we gave away 6 million in about 5 weeks, we believe we can deploy this funding by the end of March 21.
Thank you, Steve. Questions? Tina?
I've just got a point to make. Martin, who's the manager, was obviously pulled off onto something else, and that would have slowed it down because he's very, very active in recruiting people and now I know of people who are waiting to contact him and to get back onto it. So aside from the 25-50% argument, I think that we will see an acceleration in uptake now that Martin's back full steam.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you, Tina. Are there any other comments here? Questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. And so the recommendation here is to take a recommendation to the Combined Authority Board to approve the changing criteria for the Eastern Agri-Tech Growth Initiative scheme, raising the grant intervention from 25 to 50% on the growth grant part of the scheme. If anyone has any objections, can they raise their hand, please, digitally? I don't see any raised hands, so we'll move that recommendation forward on a unanimous basis. Thank you, Steve, for all three constituent parts of the LGF funding. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, can we move on then to 3.1, the University of Peterborough full business case phase 1, please. Is Kim with us? Good afternoon, Kim.
Good afternoon. I don't know why my camera's not working, but it's not a big deal. So thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Business Board members. Oh, there we go. The report in front of you provides the Business Board with the information that you require to note the recommendations that are going to the CA Board next week to approve and agree the full business case. You may remember that following the Skills Committee and the Combined Authority Board approvals in January and the Business Board approval of the LGF funding, we embarked on producing this full business case. The full business case that you have is with your papers is at Appendix A. The full business case covers the legal documentation of the delegated authority for John to agree and complete the legal documentation required to mobilise the build, and the necessity for the special purpose joint vehicle, which is Peterborough HE Property Company Limited. It also covers the award of the HE partner, which I know everybody knows now is Anglia Ruskin University, following a very, very successful launch a week or so ago. It also covers the planning permissions and submissions, which are going ahead this Friday when we move to REBA 3 on the designs and commit those to Peterborough City Council for approval, plus the procurement and selection of the main contractor, who we are looking to award under a 2-stage JCT design and build contract. We had 19 SSQs for this work. We shortlisted that to 5, and today we received 3 full tenders from main contractors, which ironically were our first, second and third choice in our shortlist and hot list. So we look really looking forward to going through those tenders. We've also run over the last 6-7 weeks meetings and workshops with Anglia Ruskin Universities and members of the Business Board to ensure that the curriculum, the business model and the student demand is stress tested over this COVID-19 pandemic. And following the launch, we've agreed to run some roundtables with corporate companies, SMEs, the public sector, educationalists, and the careers leaders. So the full business case has been provided to you for your assessment. Happy to take any questions on the full business case, and for you to note that this goes to the CA Board next Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
No worries.
Okay, just noting the fact that this is brought to the Business Board to note the report, since the final approval of the funding goes back ultimately to the combined authority.
Yeah.
We previously approved our element of funding, but nevertheless, I am mindful that some members of the board had raised concerns, and particularly in regard to COVID-19 and what that might or might not do to the plan. In terms of the business board representation, I know Al's been in some of those workshops and discussions. I wonder, Al, if you could offer any of the other members any words of comfort from what you've learned as a result of those interactions.
Yeah, happy to, Austin. I think most of the conversations, and I've been involved in a few, which I think have steadily improved in terms of getting a bigger picture, have obviously been focused around risk, given the size of the project, and understanding its tolerances. And it really kind of comes around a number of areas, because it is really about mitigation of risk. And that was linked to the flexibility of the model that ARU are proposing. So it's slightly different to a traditional university model, but with the flex between having the typical in-house university courses as well as the workplace degrees, as well as already having, in the case of ARU, a cohort of students that would move on campus. The lion's share of it really is about how resilient it would be if there is a significant change in the number of students that are looking for enrollment. And we would, a lot of the conversation really is about, firstly, the type of courses. And I think a lot of the courses being proposed are very much aligned with what at this stage are being perceived as being in higher demand post-COVID. So lots of things around social care and the skills that are most likely to be in demand, as well as some of the more high-tech aspects as well. The fact that the model allows for that course provision to be adapted and changed quite quickly over the next 2 years, if based on the feedback from market sector, that employer engagement that Kim's talking to, there is seen to be a dip in some areas or a significantly higher growth in others. The risk bit, which I think is always about reduction of risk rather than removal of risk, is simply about numbers and the model's ability to flex its costs. And it has a model that means that there is flexibility in how quickly it brings online courses and therefore recruitment of staff, but it's obviously not complete in the sense of there's always going to need to be a core cohort of staff to deliver courses even for a small number. So ARU indicated that they were happy with the flexibility of the model, and that as a business themselves, their own board had challenged and wanted to validate from their point of view that they were happy that they weren't creating any financial risk on ARU. Now, lots of these things are about how much, on a scale of confidence is being provided. Excuse me. But I felt through the conversations that ARU certainly opened up as the conversations went on. Some of the aspects, of course, are about the way that they do business. And there is absolutely the strongest case, I think, is, and I'm on video conference, but I've got my official Peterborough hat on there, knowing from a local Peterborough context, working heavily in the education space as well as business, I do think this is a really, really important opportunity. And whilst COVID presents risk, I firmly believe it also presents opportunity. And there will be a larger slice of the workforce in Peterborough who will be looking to reskill, looking to move on to different pathways. And actually the timing of this could, it's not a guarantee, but could actually be a really, really important catalyst in the recovery. So balancing all those, I feel it's a strong proposal whilst not without risk.
You're on mute, Austin.
Thank you, Andy. Can I ask if there are any other comments, questions, feedback for Kim, particularly on where we're at and where we're going? Anyone wants to raise their hand? Andy.
Yeah, so I'm one of the people who've asked questions about this, and I was reassured by Al's statements. I mean, I think the really crucial thing for me is that we just keep close to this and that we do what we can to support it and watch the risks. There are comments in the business case about, a change in student numbers it's vulnerable to that. There are also the ongoing discussions in government about levels of student fees for universities, and it may be that we get imposed with a fee cut from universities. So we just have to keep really close to it. I'd really welcome views of large local employers, people like Mark and so on, just to how engaged they are in this and how we can make sure that we do all we can to support it.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, if I could comment there, and again, the connectivity with employers at the moment is probably more challenged in the COVID environment, with many of us working remotely. A lot of the normal routines aren't there. But as one of the largest employers in the area, I can't say that we're particularly connected at the moment with what is happening on the project beyond my involvement here. So but perhaps that's something that with those of us that are representing Peterborough businesses in particular, we could work a little bit more closely with Kim and team to understand better how we can play a part in that, and perhaps to be a little bit more proactive and structured in the way in which we do that. Because at this point, and with all those sort of COVID caveats, I don't really think this is a matter that's on our agenda just at the moment as a company.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate the opportunity to connect, and obviously we will do so in the future. I think, sort of getting this over the line and getting the award for the HE partner has been fundamental, and getting it signed off by the CA board. But we're already working with Mayor Palmer, as I say, around a round table for corporate businesses, as well as connecting ARU into Opportunity Peterborough. We had a call on Friday to discuss how we can introduce ARU to the networks that we have and ensure that we work with the businesses in Peterborough to co-develop the curriculum going forward. So I think those discussions will be set in train following the summer recess, and sort of we will start the roundtables obviously in September. And realistically, we've only got about 18 months in order to ensure that the curriculum that we're offering has got the business buy-in, and the businesses are able to help us and support us with the co-development, because all of the degrees that we're running will be validated in the next 3 or 4 months to go out to the marketplace in April 2021 to start recruiting and promoting these courses to the population and the future student audience of the University of Peterborough.
Thank you, Kim. Certainly from my own selfish point of view, and I'd probably be with Mark that engineering is in phase 2, and I'd rather it was in phase 1, but we have to take a rounded view of these things, of course. Whatever has the greatest impact in phase 1 is what we should focus on.
And I think that may change, and I think we will obviously look at the post-COVID pandemic, the sectors that may need more support going forward in order to boost productivity and increase the economic development of the area. So I think those are conversations that we've still got to have. But also from your viewpoint, Austin, I know that we've spoken to your general manager about offering degree apprenticeships on site. So again, that's something we can offer corporates, that we can offer your degree apprenticeship the way you want your degree apprenticeship to run, and we would run it on your premises for your would-be apprentices.
Yeah, noted. Thanks, Kim.
No worries.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, I've got a few more hands raised. Tina.
Yeah, so my question was, are you just looking at undergraduate courses, or is there any scope for postgraduate courses?
Yeah, we're looking at postgraduates in the first phase as well. And that sort of joins up, Tina, doesn't it, to a conversation we had last summer about the masters in agritech. Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Kim. I've got a hand from Al.
Thanks, Austin. It was just I wanted just to kind of reaffirm, because in the early conversations there was reference to the fact that the level of potential employer engagement in the early phase of this project was less than perhaps would be hoped. And ARU were quite open in saying that until they were awarded, they didn't have the resource. They couldn't do too much extensive alignment with employers, but that was on their radar as absolutely one of their key tasks post being awarded. And I think the point that Andy's made, and it aligns with Mark, is I think there is an important role for the business board to play in continuing to monitor and support that process to make sure there's maximum engagement.
Brilliant.
Perfect. Thanks, Al. And I've got a hand from John Hill.
So twice today, one of the board members said exactly what I was going to say, but just to give another edge, the procurement process made it very difficult for the bidders to actually talk to businesses before the 14th of July and when they were announced. So it is true that business engagement hasn't been very good, but that's significantly due to the procurement process itself and them not being able to talk to businesses until they were officially agreed as being the partner in place. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg one, that one.
Understandable. Thank you, John. I don't see any more hands raised. The recommendation here is to note the report. Certainly welcome the debate and the inputs. Let me say thank you particularly to Andy and to Al. Andy in the background for helping us to understand what testing questions to ask, and Al for being kind enough to go and front them. And all the officers for the collaboration along the way to make that happen so we could get more comfortable with it. Thank you for that. Unless there are any raised hands then in objection here, I'm going to carry this to the Combined Authority that we have noted the final business case, phase 1. Okay, I don't see any hands, so we'll proceed on that basis. Consider that carried. Kim, thank you very much indeed.
Right, thank you.
Good job. Good luck.
Thanks.
Let's change gear to corporate governance of the growth company, please, with Alan.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Board. On the 27th of November 2019, the CPCA Board endorsed the Business Growth Service Outline business case and agreed to the establishment of a growth service management company, which is GrowthCo, initially to be owned as a subsidiary of Angle Holdings. The purpose of GrowthCo will be to manage the growth service, its delivery fund, and with it procure the delivery of the growth service itself from the private sector. With this board paper is Appendix 1, which is a business case, and there is Appendix 2, which is a business plan. Just to note, once LGF funding is received into GrowthCo, we are looking at a program management board for decision making within GrowthCo, which will probably have a representative from the business board and the skills committee. And we will be detailing this either in the FBC or another board paper at some other later date. And just to note, please, the full business case of the Business Growth Service is being developed as we speak and will be presented to the Skills Committee, Business Board and CA Board in September 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions? John?
Could I offer the board a bit of a clarification or an exploration of a point? You haven't raised it, but the Skills Committee did, and I suspect that some of you might be wondering why, given that the Business Board is a major shareholder because of its £5.4 million LGF investment in the growth company, why isn't there a shareholder position on the directors? This was advice from our governance colleagues in terms of they felt that officers, as the senior responsible officer, in this case Brian, and the senior finance officer, in this case John Alsop, would be the most appropriate directors, and then to have an independent chair. So I'd welcome any debate around shareholder representation on the board, but I would also point this this dimension on it, and it goes like this. In the end, this is a special purpose vehicle. It was created only really to assemble £20 million when we started with 2.3 million of MTFP funding, and to be able to convert the 5 million of capital funding from the local growth fund into revenue so that we can pay business advisors to put boots on the ground to give business support to companies. So it's a special purpose vehicle that assembles £20 million. And then we also, or you decided together to then subcontract the private sector to deliver those services in order to control risk more, rather than, for instance, recruiting a load of bodies into a growth company as a subsidiary of the CPCA and them all being employees, and then having to take punitive action if you don't get the results that you want and are in the OBC. So one of the solutions to that was to subcontract it to the private sector that puts a contractual relationship on the critical path, in that these contractors are paid by outcomes. So the jobs we want and the number of apprenticeships we want, they get paid their profit element only when they deliver the outcomes. So it's really about a contractual relationship between a program management board and a bunch of contractors. So I think the point I would make is the directors of this company are responsible for moving the money from A to B, and ultimately responsible for the outcomes of the contract that they hold as a company. But all of the executive power for making sure we get these results sits in a program management board that I would certainly expect a member of the business board to be on and a member of the skills committee to be on, that actually runs the contractual relationship with these subcontractors and gives them reward and gives them pain if they're not delivering.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that clarification. I think that will probably help a number of members get more comfortable with the governance structure here. I'm certainly comfortable with that approach. The more important thing is to make sure that we've got a voice on the program management board and can deal with the various twists and turns and agility that we need to change and make decisions over time. Okay, Amir, you have a question?
I just didn't understand the Angle Holdings Limited. So they are the overall owners, and what's the relationship there?
Complicated, Amir. So, and this goes back to converting the 5.4 million of capital into revenue. Angle Holdings is the original owner of Growth Co. Angle Holdings being a subsidiary of the CPCA. It then
actually that was the important thing I just wanted to.
But that's not how it stays, because the minute that you, ladies and gentlemen, invest your 5.4 million of LGF, 99 of the 100 shares come over to you, because you need to get equity in exchange for your investment. So Angle Holdings is initially the main shareholder, but in fact the majority shareholder becomes effectively the LGF and the CPCA in a different legal personality.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Complicated.
All righty, thank you for that. Just a note that I've received apologies from Andy, who's had to run to another meeting. Robert, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a point of clarity, because I'm aware this is being recorded. Sorry, John. The payment of the LGF funding will be going directly into the growth company. so it'll issue new shares to the CPCA. If it were paid to Holdco, they'd end up with the money rather than the growth company.
All right, thank you, Robert. Okay, I don't see any more questions. No more hands raised. So the business board has been asked to endorse three recommendations here. The corporate governance arrangements for the Growth Co are set out in section 3 of the report. The Growth Co business case are set out in Appendix 1, and the Growth Co business plan are set out in Appendix 2. My working assumption is, unless anyone raises a hand, that we are all in support of endorsing those three elements of the recommendation. I don't see any hands raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board.
Consider that carried. Thank you, Alan. Good job. Let's change gear to Market Towns, please, Dom.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm just conscious of time. So the Business Board asked for this update to come after the launch of the investment prospectus for Market Towns. So I'm glad to present you the paper. Updating the latest position following the launch of that prospectus last month. So just in terms of background for the Business Board, so following the successful launch of the pilot in St Neots in 2018-19, the Combined Authority was committed to roll that out to other key towns, market towns in the area, and to give them an opportunity to really identify those areas of growth and how they can really contribute to the growth of the sub-economies in support of economic development. We've had master plans approved for Fenland and Huntingdonshire, and you'll be pleased to know that next week the final plans for East Cambs are going to the Combined Authority for approval. The Market Towns prospectus was launched, successfully launched last month, and we've been having some informative conversations with local authorities and the district partners in terms of getting proposals submitted against the £10 million which the Combined Authority have made available for implementing those master plans and the interventions identified therein. We've also asked our partners to give consideration to COVID recovery and to see if there's anything that we can do in terms of the role that market towns can play in responding to the challenges of a post-COVID economy, and how the reformed high street and the role that the market towns can play in terms of sustaining that recovery as well. The process for approving applications has been set out in the prospectus, which is attached as Appendix 1. I want to thank Al and Faye for their support in getting the Business Board input, and that sends a check in terms of RD's proposals, considering economic development and really, contributing to the growth that we're expecting of these market towns, not just on the high street, but the wider town in terms of business growth and support. So thank you both. The next round of projects are expected to come in during September and November for approval, and I will be back in contact with the Business Board to see if there's anyone that would like to be involved in that going forwards. And just as a final point, this week we should put the final approvals to 3.1 million, which has been recycled back into St Neots to deliver against their master plan priorities, but also in support of their Future High Streets fund, which has been submitted at the end of this week, actually, to CLG for over £13 million of investment into St Neots, really addressing the role of the High Street, the Market Square, and the wider Priory Centre and the community hub there. So unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Dom.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members, for your support. Are there any questions? Okay, I don't see any questions, any hands raised. So the Business Board is recommended to note the progress being made with the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authorities Market Town programme, and the update on the recently launched investment prospectus in support of the master plan delivery. I'm proposing that we move with that recommendation unless anyone raises a hand. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Dom. Good luck with that. And can we move then, please, to Business Board Communications update to Rebecca, please. Hi, Rebecca.
Hello, good afternoon, board. Yeah, I'm here in place of Emily, who is on a much well-deserved holiday. So just some quick figures for you from our June focus on business and skills communications. We particularly used a narrative of recovery, having moved on from the crisis and rescue stage that we were in sort of up until that point. So particularly providing support to businesses and job seekers so that we could get people back into business once restrictions allowed for that to happen. So we've had 8 press releases on various matters, 4 interviews with the mayor, 5 videos, 43 media coverage pickups, 62 social media posts, and 20,000 newsletters. We've been particularly focusing, obviously, the good news stories from the case studies of the micro and capital grants. We've been using video and press releases to really promote those around the region. Emails sent to local businesses, keeping them up to date about what's available both from us and from central government, our one-to-ones, our webinars, and the launching and moving forward of the talent portal and retraining. We've done large amounts of social media. We've been accelerating our social media usage and particularly expanding our use of rich media. And we've been looking heavily towards the Market Town promotion. We're in the process of setting up a dedicated Facebook group for the Market Towns to encourage people to share, to find ways to involve the communities in that project. And pleasantly, we have been able to celebrate some good news with local grant funding and also obviously the micro and capital grants. The biggest, more general change that we've been making is that we have been undergoing what Emily refers to as a digital transformation in the comms team. This has been accelerated. It's been on the cards for a little while, but it's been accelerated, of course, because of COVID and our need to engage very much directly with our stakeholders at this point. So we have been able to move towards something that is much more consistent, much more streamlined, and much more targeted. We've done a lot of work during June to embed these new ways of working with new engagement tools. We've been refining what we're doing with HubSpot, which was very new to us. I've used CRMs before, but not HubSpot, so that's been quite a lot of fast learning. And we've been doing a lot of work on our data collection, making sure that what we've got is clean, making sure that what we've got is usable and clearly segmented so that we can use that in a variety of different ways. We've been growing the engagement for the one-to-ones and the webinars, and we've been growing the focus on the talent portal and retraining scheme. We've also been providing more targeted communications, increasing our use of targeted paid for ads, particularly via Facebook, which is where you see the greatest ROI. And we are now moving towards some heavier engagement via Facebook groups. We're trying this with the Market Towns. We'll see how it goes and see whether there are other situations in which that can also be useful. We've been using that kind of technology also to ensure that what we're doing to promote business and skills projects is done as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So automated invitations, automated reporting on who's attending things, who's opened emails, who perhaps hasn't received the email and needs to. That sort of thing has been much more automated by use of these digital tools that are available to us. So yeah, we are moving towards a lot more reporting. I'm hoping to ultimately be setting you up soon with automated reports for you on communications that are pertinent to business boards. So you can actually see some of our analytics in more real time than a monthly update. It's helped really for us to alter what we're doing, see what works, see what hasn't, very much to actually move in an agile way and really be flexible about what we're doing so that we can start to make sure that we're making the impact where it's most needed. We are working on lots of different things on that front. You can see some of the figures here. I won't go through all of them, just some of the figures on the communications that we've been doing. It's worth, one figure that I know Emily hasn't got here is that we recently hit 300 subscribers, likes on our Facebook page, which sounds very, very small, I'm well aware, but in October, when I first looked at our Facebook page, we had 68. So I'm feeling quite pleased about that increase at the moment. And obviously we are expecting that to grow exponentially. But yeah, we are growing what we're doing from a business and skills point of view. It's absolutely key that we continue to grow in the way that we are doing. And yeah, I hope that we'll be giving you more good news of that kind in the future.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Questions? Anyone?
Chair, Austin, it's just a raised hand from me. It's Brian here. Just to add on to the back of that, the comms team have been excellent in helping the business and skills team, particularly during the COVID-19 period. And simultaneously to that, we were obviously looking for our own dedicated business and market engagement officer, who we thought we found, and I thought that was the case until I came back from holiday today. And as Dom mentioned to everybody at the start of this meeting, that person's now withdrawn. So I'm just like to use this forum as just to make a plea, really. That role is definitely open. I'm sure amongst us we must know somebody that could be a very suitable candidate, or we might even know a business leader or owner who has got such a person that may not be the first person they want to take off furlough. I'm mindful of these sorts of roles, because they're not income generating, might be roles that may not survive with some businesses that have got cash generating challenges. So we would even consider some kind of 12-month secondment for that role if somebody wants to suggest somebody out in their network. So through Dom, I'll just send the job description to the entire business board with both those ideas, either any suggestions of direct candidates or people in their peer network that have got great possible people doing those roles, but they might want to second them across to us for a year to save some cash. I'll be really grateful for any help on that.
I'd really second that. I'm very aware that our the demand for digital engagement across the combined authority services is growing swiftly, and I'm aware that there is a limit on our capacity. I think business and skills is an area where it can really make a huge difference, and for you to be able to have somebody dedicated to doing that will make a big difference in terms of what we're able to do as a communications team.
And especially with the launch of the business growth service happening in
yeah,
autumn.
Absolutely.
So help needed, please.
Please.
All right, yeah, noted. Just remind people of conflicts of interest to further that discussion online here, but if anyone wants to take that up offline, please do so. Faye, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. So Rebecca, thank you to you and the team. You know, I think over the last few months, we've seen big changes in the communications, and I think that that's really positive. I have a couple of questions we can take offline in terms of click-through rates. Are they actual? Are they percentages? But I think the key thing is the being agile, iterating. When something's not working, like the responses to the webinars don't look particularly great, there's a lot of fatigue with people on Zoom and Teams and all that kind of stuff. So I think just keep iterating and keep being agile. And then my final comment, which really ties back into Brian, is it's that difference between what's combined authority, what's business and skills, what's the business board, what's the mayor. And although we are progressing so much, I still don't think we've got those lines of delineation, if indeed we need those. And I know that's something both Rebecca and myself keep having that conversation with you. So we're here. If we can help, just do reach out and let us know.
Absolutely, much appreciated. On the point about the webinars, you're absolutely right. That is something where Emily and I have been holding some quite significant discussions about what we can do to make that work. One of the things that we are doing is we're implementing via the Growth Hub website, which is one of the other things that we're working on currently. We're bringing in a knowledge base which can hold those in a way that is very, very helpful, so that for people looking for things that aren't live perhaps but are available to them in the long term, that will provide actually a really nice place for people to get written information, recommendations, and also to get things from a webinar library at the same time. So that's the next step, and then finding ways to promote that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Working out exactly where the different communication lines fall is something that I know has been on Emily's mind significantly while we've been going through COVID, and we'll see how that pans out. But I do think that the marketing and engagement officer role for business in particular will make a huge difference to what we can actually do to support.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Rebecca. I think I can speak on behalf of the whole board to say we're very pleased with the quality and the frequency and all the touch points that we've seen increasing over the last 2 or 3 months in particular. So thank you for that. Keep up the good work. Let's see if we can get some more resource.
One very quick thing is just to say that one of the things that I'm personally working on at the moment is a newsletter that is personalised to people's interests. I will send the link to Dom, and if you would like to sign up and get yourself signed up for any of the things that you would like to see, then do so. It's in the getting constructed stage at the moment, so hopefully it will be a monthly thing going forward from August. So do sign up and see what you'd like to hear about in that vein as well.
Sure. Well, one thing that I think we'd appreciate is if we could get a view as to what you've got coming up over the next 4 to 6 weeks or so.
Of course.
Such that if there is an opportunity for the business board to get any mileage out of it without conflicting with anything else, that any other messaging that's going on, then we'd appreciate the opportunity to ride that wave with you, so to speak, please.
Absolutely. I'll send something round that has our sort of upcoming priorities on it for the next 4 to 6 weeks. There's quite a lot of fairly big projects that are coming up, including obviously the employment and skills, looking at what the comms opportunities will be for that. I know that's going to be a big thing for us, and various other bits and pieces. I'll put a list together. Perfect,
thank you. All right, the business board is recommended to note the updates on the business board related comms activity for June. Thank you. We're almost there. Apologies, running over a little. In terms of headlines for the combined authority, so there are a number of points that we've been through. 2.2 on LGF is to carry forward the recommendations for the 2 projects that we're going to fund, and the 1 project that we're not, which may be a bit of a contentious issue, but we'll deal with that in the meeting. The project updates will carry the recommendations forward on that, and the change request around the Wisbech Access Strategy project, reducing funding there. Noting to the approval, we'll seek the approval of the Combined Authority to approve the grant intervention change of 25 to 50% on the Eastern Agritech project, and to delegate authority to the Director of Business and Skills to manage any further changes. Noting the business plan for UOP, and I think that's it. I'm sure they'll be interested in an update on where we are with COVID-19 and all the other related activities, but those are the specific points I noted, which should be carried forward in the Combined Authority minutes for the meeting. Is there anything else that any other members would like me to raise, particularly and specifically with the Combined Authority during the up and coming meeting? There would be a good chance to shout. Okay, can't see anyone shouting. And then we'll move forward to the forward business plan, Dom. I think members have all had an opportunity to read this. So in the interests of time, rather than go through it step by step, which could take some time, if anyone thinks there are any omissions or anything that needs to get pulled forward or moved around, now would be a good time to share those thoughts. Otherwise, we'll consider that to be done. Faye?
Sorry, just really quickly, Tina, I know you're on this. Any update on the Agritech strategy, when we'll hear back on that?
Sorry, there was a bit of a delay. I had an email last week saying that it was being delayed due to COVID-related things, but I'm not sure when we'll hear back. Let's see if I could quickly find the email, I could email you and let you know.
Is there anything we could do to help, Tina?
No, I don't think so. They just have been contacting different people. Our board, our steering board, hasn't met for a while. Got off to a great start and then stalled. She said that recent communications from Louisa and Steve asking us to adapt the report to include more information about the effect of COVID-19. And this means there's a slight change to the terms of reference. So that seems to be delaying things a bit. So Steve, I don't know if you've got anything specific to add on that.
I don't think Steve is with us anymore.
He's gone now, is he?
Yeah. No, I mean, I asked Steve, not surprisingly, I guess, that of any of the remaining sector strategies we've still got out and being compiled, for goodness sakes, let's get them to include the impacts of COVID. So I guess if that delays it, we'll just have to tolerate the delays.
It shouldn't delay by much.
We get that COVID dimension.
Yeah, I just got that last week. It is my intention to chase it and find out what it means.
There is Steve, look.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I think Nick just patched me back in. I think you've covered it, John. We're asking all of our strategy authors and writers in line with the COVID impact strategy work just to now reflect a bit of a chapter, if you like, or the impacts of COVID. Of course, they were doing it anyway. It was unavoidable, but we just wanted to bring that a little bit more to the fore so that we can use it in our planning and strategizing going forwards. It seems a bit silly not to do it. And even if it means they're a few weeks behind finalising the actual report, it's definitely going to be the better for it.
She didn't say in the email to me that there would be a delay. I just assumed that, but do you know that there will be?
Yeah, because we've given them a few other parameters of things we'd like them to look at. So they have actually said it will take them another extra few weeks just to get that done. So I am expecting a slight delay, but nothing too major.
Okay. Any other comments on the forward plan? Don't see any hands raised. Any other business, anyone? Alrighty. Listen, thanks everyone for your time this afternoon. There's quite a full agenda to plough through. Apologies that we're just a little bit over time. I'll join the combined authority meeting next week and see if we can clear some of these things off that require their approval. Thanks everyone for your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.